Good. Sorry. Hello, I am graced today with Dr. Tom O'Brien. And when it comes to getting healthy, Dr. Tom O'Brien's goal for you is making it easy to do the right thing. As an internationally recognised, admired and compassionate speaker focusing on food sensitivities, environmental toxins and the development of autoimmune diseases, Dr. Tom's audiences discover that it is through a clear understanding of how you got to where you are that you and your doctor and practitioner can figure out what will it take to get you well. Dr. Tom O'Brien is considered the Sherlock Holmes for chronic diseases and teaches that recognising and addressing underlying mechanisms that activate an immune response is the map to the highway towards better health. He holds teaching faculty positions with the Institute of Functional Medicine and the National University of Health Sciences. Dr. Tom has trained and certified tens of thousands of practitioners around the world in advanced understanding of the impact of wheat sensitivity and the development of individual autoimmune diseases. Dr. O'Brien's most recent book, You Can Fix Your Brain, just 1 hour a week to the best memory, productivity and sleep you've ever had. Hallelujah, was published through Rodale Books to global accolades and ranked #1 in several brain categories on Amazon. This bestseller offers a step-by-step approach to better cognitive function, from nutrition to environment to toxicity, and ultimately creating better long-term memory and a sharper mind. We are blessed that Dr. Tom has released Betrayal, the autoimmune disease solution they're not telling you about, an investigation into why our immune system, designed to protect us, actually begins attacking our own tissue, called autoimmunity. There's currently over 500,000 people worldwide that have watched the docuseries, betrayaldocumentary.com. Groundbreaking book and winner and National Book Award of the National Book Award, The Autoimmune Fix, outlines a step-by-step development of degenerative diseases and gives the tools to identify our disease process years before the symptoms are obvious and how to turn our health around one step at a time. So we have with us today the founder of thedoctor.com and the visionary behind the Gluten Summit, A Grain of Truth, bringing together 29 of the world's experts on the gluten connection to diseases, disorders, and a wide range of symptoms and ages. And you can find this info at theglutensummit.com. So to say I'm a little bit excited to talk to Dr. Tom O'Brien is probably an understatement. And you can probably hear it in my voice today, because this is a man that has a vision for global healing. And everything that he has done to date is in true alignment with empowering people to ask good questions and start to take sovereignty of the changes that are going to occur in their body as they start to heal. So without me talking any further, how are you, Dr. Tom O'Brien?
Oh, Sally Ann, thank you so much. That was a chapter of a book that you just read. Thank you so much for that. I'm very well, thank you. We're very much looking forward to this new docuseries that we are about to launch. I'm really seeing that this is my flagship. This is the culmination of 45 years of being a doctor and a physician, and it really is. My goal is making it easy to do the right thing, but sometimes it's not difficult, or it's difficult to get there, to make it easy. You have to let go of what you have thought, because what you have thought and how you've acted has given you the results you've got today. And if you're not happy with the results, Einstein was quoted as saying, the problems we've created today cannot be solved with the same level of thinking that created the problem. So you got to up your game. You got to think differently, right? And so that's what this event is really for all of us to up our game. I want the relationship with your doctor, when you're going to a doctor because you want to get healthier, you want to put a disease in remission, you want to get rid of some symptoms you have. Your symptoms are not because you've got a deficiency of a particular pill. Yes. I don't care if it's a pharmaceutical or a nutraceutical. It's rarely a deficiency of the pill. The pill can help with some of the symptoms, but it's the lifestyle that got you to where you are. And people don't like to hear this. They just tell me what to take. What do I take? And the result of that, or actually, where does that come from?
Yeah.
What's the name of that box on the wall in the bathroom in everyone's house? What's the name of the box?
Oh, everybody has.
Medicine cabinet.
Everyone has a
Medicine
medicine. Yeah.
Right? It's not a health cabinet. It's a medicine cabinet. And we thought that's cute. No, but we're trained from day one. The medicine cabinet. Go in your bathroom after you watch this and go get the toothpaste that you're giving to your children and read the label on the toothpaste. And if it says, warning, do not swallow. If swallowed, call National Poison Control Center. If that's what it says on there, wake up. You can't use that. It's a poison. It's got carcinogenic chemicals in it. And they have to put it on the label because it's so bad. If they don't put it on the label, there'd be so many lawsuits. So we have been trained to think putting the symptoms in remission is health. No, it's not. It's just the absence of disease for the moment. So if you want vitality, if you want to shorten the distance between your lifespan and your healthy lifespan, if you want that distance to be shorter, the World Health Organization tells us that the average in industrialized countries is 10.3 years, that your healthy lifespan is 10.3 years less than your lifespan, meaning the last decade of your life, you're diseased, you're on medications and dysfunctional. That's the norm in this, no, wrong word, not norm. That's common in this world today. It's not normal. And if you want to shorten that distance between healthy lifespan and lifespan, then you need to change the game. You need to up your game a bit. So you have to think differently. So I've gone around the world. I've spent a year, actually. It was a year last week. I did my first interview for this. And 7 countries, 84 world experts, professors, physicians, all over the world on this thing about inflammation. And I thought, I'd do something that I've not done in an interview before, because you and I were talking before you turned this thing on. And I said, let me share this with you. And so I'm going to share a short video in just a moment, but I want to give a little background on that first. In the docuseries I did 8 years ago, which was the last time I did one of these, I'm no professional at this, but when I get a passion, nothing stops us, absolutely nothing. But when I did it 8 years ago, I interviewed a woman who was the patient of a friend of mine in London. And I was in London doing interviews, and my friend Anthony said, Anthony, do you have a patient that would be good to interview of when they followed your advice that it worked? And so he introduced me to Elrina, whose last name I'll keep private. But she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so I interviewed her. And at the time, she said, I took the tube to come here today, the underground train. I took the tube to come here, and it was a 7-minute walk from the station to this hotel for the interview. It's not a big, and I walked. That's not a big deal. And then she got teary-eyed and she said, but it is. And then we show you the pictures of her in a wheelchair 2 years earlier. She can't walk. She's got advanced MS, and she had 8 lesions on her brain in the MRIs. And here she is today at the interview, no symptoms whatsoever, 2 lesions left on her brain. And neurologists tell you that that's impossible. No, it's not. I've got 5 studies in my gluten course for practitioners showing the MRIs of reversing lesions in the brain on a gluten-free diet. And so it's not impossible. But anyway, that's Elrina. And a couple of months ago, I decided, I wonder what happened to Elrina. It's been 8 years. Did she fall off the wagon and her symptoms came back? How's she doing? so I reached out and she said, well, I'd love to talk to you, Dr. O'Brien. So, and she's mountain biking now, three times a week.
Wow.
She's 54, I think it is. Her two kids are now in their 20s, just vibrant, dynamic. She's a healthcare practitioner. She cannot be stopped. And I thought I'd play a little bit of the interview with her because there's a couple bullet points that are like, what? What did you say? You know, it's like that. And this is what you learn in the inflammation equation is points like that. So if it's okay, I'll play this
Please.
now. Okay, let's share screen here. Let's see. Where is, well, I guess I'll need my glasses for this. And okay, it's not there. So let's find out where it went. Oh, I see. Okay, it's here. There it is. So now we'll go here and we'll share this one and we'll bring it up to full screen. And here we go.
You know, I had to suspend my belief in Western medicine, which is where I'd had my training, where, you know, I didn't grow up in a society like India or China where there's a different way of thinking.
What's the one change that mattered the most that you think created a domino effect on your wellness?
Changing my belief system. And that's not an easy thing to do, Ron, because you have to, oh my goodness. It was literally a question of like, what if this is not true? You know, I had to suspend my belief in Western medicine, which is where I'd had my training, where, you know, I didn't grow up in a society like India or China where there's a different way of thinking. I grew up in South Africa where it's very much the doctor is God and he knows all, and your doctor tells you something, you do what the doctor tells you, or, you know. So I think it was disengaging from that system, even as a practitioner within that system, that was the hardest thing to do and the most pivotal, because if I hadn't done that, and I'd gone to Anthony and he told me what he told me, and I can tell you, I was really skeptical when he told me he could help me. I really was. And then I went to see him and I was even more skeptical because I was like, oh my goodness, if it wasn't for my son, I wouldn't be here. And then seeing, so, you know, kind of going, not quite there with the belief yet, but I'm going to have to I'm going to do whatever he tells me to do because I just need to do something different because what I'm listening to is not going to work for me or my son. And taking that step in a direction of something I didn't believe in, that I hadn't seen any evidence of, and doing it anyway. And then within 6 months being symptom-free, and look, you tell me I'm black and white, right? I'm points and shoots. You tell me which direction to go, I go. I don't waffle. That's just my personality. So he told me what to do and I did it 100%.
Yes.
And then, of course, you know, within 6 months, I mean, even within 3 months, my son was saying, because I'd said to my son, I'm going to try this for 6 months, and if it works for me, we're going to try it for you. And within about 2 or 3 months, he was saying to me, oh God, I'm going to have to do this as well, because they could see how hard it was, right? You go into a restaurant, there's nothing you can eat. I mean, I'm going back, however long it is now, 12 years. Gluten-free, dairy-free, daily nightshade-free wasn't just rolling off the tongue as it does now. So, and certainly people were not as accepting of it or as accommodating, I suppose. So it wasn't easy. So we'd be in a restaurant and he'd be scoffing whatever he was eating. And I'd be like, oh, I can only have, you know, a lettuce leaf in this particular restaurant. There's nothing else I can eat. And he was like, oh no, if this works. And of course, after 2 months, he was like, this does work. My whole family could see it. The fatigue was gone. You know, the cock fog was clearing. I certainly had no motor symptoms going on anymore. So by 6 months' time, he was on it, right? So I'd say that was the most pivotal, was suspending belief and going in a direction I didn't believe in initially.
Yeah. Beautiful answer. Thank you so much for that. What's the one thing you avoid at all costs?
Oh, in terms of food or at overall?
Overall.
I would say dairy would be the overall thing, but toxic people and the news.
Yes. That's what the hope was of my staff person that asked the question, because she was talking about how toxic relationships affect her. And can you tell us a little more of why you say toxic people for you? What's your experience?
You know, I think there's, as somebody, I don't know, you said this is some people are radiators and some people are drains. And as a practitioner, I don't get to choose who comes through my door. So I get both, and you accept them and you love them and you treat them and you let them go. But they are not people that are affecting you on a day-to-day basis. And I think that is the one thing as a practitioner, is learning how to not be affected by people like that, and also to gradually clear out my patient list of the people who don't really want to be helped. And I know that might sound awful, but some people are not ready to heal. Some people aren't ready to hear the message, right? So
Yes.
It was also just clearing my list, if you like. But within my relationship, I was still married to my ex-husband at the time. And even though I wouldn't call him a toxic person, our relationship is toxic, in that he created a real atmosphere of insecurity and instability in our lives, in all our lives. And for me as a person, I'm your classic ACE person, right? Adverse childhood experiences, I'm the poster child for those. And I knew that, but then being in a marriage with somebody who really brought out the worst in me and brought out all those insecurities and all those, it was the best possible thing for our marriage to fall apart. And it's no coincidence that it happened more or less at the same time. Like within 2 years of me changing my diet, our marriage fell apart. I was more awake, I was more alert, I was more able to resist and say no.
Fascinating.
Okay.
And so this is
That
a
is-
woman that technically was in a wheelchair. She looks so vibrant.
Yes.
Her eyes, her skin, her hair. She does not look in, did you say mid-50s?
Mid-50s.
She looks sensational. I mean, this is a woman that's done what we call as practitioners the deeper work. You know, she's assessed her environment. She's assessed how things are making her feel, because she's actually said, this is not my reality. I'm now going to start to look at my world differently. Even
Yes.
to the cost of her own marriage, which, you know, that's not a very easy decision. And we're certainly not advocating for that on this podcast. But I think ultimately you need to look at the things around you. So talk to me a little bit.
If you look at the history, she explained to me the history a little later in the interview. Her father died when she was 3.
Right.
Her mother died when she was 9. Her stepfather died when she was 11.
Wow.
And then she went through many foster homes until she was 19. So adverse childhood events. I mean, so when she talks about insecurity, she had no security as a child. At some point, none whatsoever. And so she was attracted to, for some reason, that she was most vulnerable to.
Mm.
And so she married a husband who was married a man that was not a toxic man, but they had a toxic relationship. There was no security for her. And so it brought out the worst in her. And I'm emphasizing that because a critical component of arresting your disease is adjusting the mindset of how that disease came about. We can't ignore that it's not just food, it's not just environment and chemicals, it's also relationships and how you feel about yourself and how you take care of yourself or not. That these are some of the things that we talk about that are so critically important to be aware of. It may not resonate for you, or it may, or you may say, you know, that's my brother. That's exactly what my brother needs to hear, or, you know, whatever it should be.
Mm. It's certainly cracking the box on, you know, even just removing food sensitivities. It's even, you know, it's going deeper than just doing a stool test and doing a blood test. Like, this is actually treating the person as a whole, which is the philosophy of a functional nutritionist. And obviously yourself, like, you've obviously come from this lens. So now that you've gone and you've put 12 months into putting the inflammation equation together, you've spoken to some of the most incredible minds that are creating huge change around the world in this space. Taking a step back, because you've obviously gone and done all the information and all the interviews. And so taking a step back as a practitioner, what's your philosophy now around inflammation?
It is The CDC tells us that 14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases. Everything except unintentional injuries is this low-grade inflammation under the surface for years. You don't feel it, you don't notice it, but it's under the surface, killing off tissue, killing off tissue, killing off tissue. And eventually you kill off enough tissue to where the tissue can't quite function properly. So now you get dysfunction. And you notice that, sometimes I'm just not quite, I need to take a shower to loosen my joints in the morning before I can move, whatever it should be. And then that continues because the lifestyle causing that low-grade inflammation continues, and it kills off tissue, kills off tissue, kills off tissue, until eventually that little bit of dysfunction produces symptoms. Now you think you're just beginning to develop a problem. It's been there for years.
Yeah.
You just didn't know. And then the problem gets bad enough. All right, I'll go see a doctor. What do I take to get rid of this? As if it's a deficiency of a pill that caused it in the first place. And when you understand, and I'll give you a classic example of this. The US government published in 2018, they said, we've got a problem that Alzheimer's is going to bankrupt Medicare in 25 years. More and more people are getting Alzheimer's, and it's costing more and more money that we just won't be able to pay for it as more people get older and they get this, which, by the way, Blue Cross Blue Shield is the largest for-profit health insurance company in the US anyway. And they published a paper that year, no, it was February of 2019, no, 2020, February of 2020. And they said, we've got a problem here. In the previous 4-year period, there was a 407% increase in 4 years, a 407% increase in the diagnosis of Alzheimer's in 30 to 44-year-olds.
Wow.
In 4 years. This is the epidemic that nobody is talking about because nobody wants to look at it in young people. So back to the government and saying, we're going to go bankrupt. Let's get a commission together to figure out what is this thing and what are we going to do about it? So this commission was formed. They brought in the sharpest minds that they could get to talk about what is Alzheimer's, where does it come from? And what they identified, the graph that they drew in their report was so empowering. If you understand it, when you first look at it, you really can't tell until it's explained to you what you're looking at. But I'm going to bring it up here and I'm going to show it to you because it's like, what? What? So let me bring this up. Normally I don't do this in an interview, but we're going to do it here.
Yeah.
Because we've already started this way. So let me bring this one up for you. So now I'm going to share screen again. Let's see now, where is, there you are. So let's share screen. And here we go. Good, we're gonna share the screen and I'm gonna put the slide up here. So this is the report from the Advisory Council to Health and Human Services about approaches to Alzheimer's and related dementias. And in that report, they did this drawing. Now this says it all. So first you've got a normal amount of brain cell changes occurring. Mrs. Patient, you have an entire new body every few years. Every cell in your body regenerates, every single cell, some really quick and some slow, but there's a normal amount of changeover, cellular changeover that occurs. But now you go into this prodromal period where you get all of this inflammation. And so first you have the normal amount of antibodies to your brain to get rid of old and damaged cells. And there's 3 primary mechanisms by which that occurs: apoptosis, autophagy, and cellular regeneration. Okay, that's normal. But now when you get excessive sensitivity to foods, or you get sensitivity to the amount of bacteria or viruses you're exposed to, or the environmental chemicals you're exposed to. All of these different things that produce this low-grade inflammation. And that low-grade inflammation is producing antibodies that kill off brain cells. You've got this elevation of antibodies killing off tissue, killing off tissue, killing off tissue.
So we technically
And
are getting dumber. We are getting dumber as a nation. Sorry. Sometimes I'm asking those questions. I'm like, really? Sorry to interrupt.
And this is going on for 20 years.
Wow.
Of killing off cells and killing off cells and killing off cells. And look at the symptoms you get. None. You don't know what's going on. But the elevated levels of inflammation are killing off cells, more brain cells than you're making. Until you get to the point of dysfunction, now you have what's called mild cognitive impairment. And you walk out of the shopping center into the parking lot and say, what road did I park my car in? Wait a minute. Where's my keys? Wait a minute. What's that person's name walking towards me? Short-term memory loss. And you think, oh, I'm just too stressed. I'm just too stressed. I don't know what's going on. And this goes on for 7 years. So now we're 25 to 30 years into killing off tissue, killing off tissue, killing off tissue. Then you get the diagnosis of mild Alzheimer's. And you think the problem just began. So we have to understand it's this low-grade inflammation that's there under the surface for many, many years before you have symptoms. That's what we have to address. And Mrs. Patient, your immune system produces the inflammation, and your immune system is just the armed forces in your body. It's the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines. It's there to protect you. So the question is, what is it trying to protect you from? Why is my immune system activated right now? I feel fine, but the tests say I've got elevated antibodies in my brain. Any patient that wants to see me has to do 4 tests before I'll even talk to them. I don't even want to talk to them until I know what I'm looking at.
Yes.
Right? And when you do the Neural Zoomer Plus test, it looks at 53 antibodies in your brain. And you see right away, how inflamed is this brain right now? And they feel fine. They don't have any problems that they know. They feel fine. But well, you've got 17 antibodies elevated to your brain, killing off tissue, killing off tissue, killing off tissue. And then they sit there and they go, oh my God, I had no idea. What do we do? I say, great question. Now you have to look at, what is my immune system trying to protect me from?
Yes.
So you look at the environmental triggers that activate your immune system trying to protect you. Is it lead? Is it mercury? Is it petrochemicals? Is it red dye number 42? Is it gluten? Is it dairy? What is your immune system trying to protect you? It doesn't matter what it is. You have to identify it and then eliminate the source of the exposure to calm down your immune system, because your immune system hasn't gone haywire. Autoimmune disease is not a disease of a crazy immune system. It's a disease of an immune system trying to protect you. Don't believe me? Just Google rheumatoid arthritis and bacterial infections. Here come the studies that your immune system trying to fight bacteria that you're exposed to mistakenly begins to attack the collagen on your joints, because the protein of the collagen looks like the outer shell of the bacteria. So the antibody is called molecular mimicry. The antibodies that are going after the bacteria in your bloodstream, everywhere they can see that bacteria, they're going to fight it, they're going to fight it. Oh, look over there. There's that bacteria. Boom. And they fire their chemical bullets at your collagen on your joints. Here comes rheumatoid. 14 years later, I mean, you've got elevated antibodies to your joints 7 to 14 years before you ever have a symptom. Killing off tissue, killing off tissue, killing off tissue. So you have this low-grade bacterial infection for years before. You just Google multiple sclerosis and dairy. Here come the studies. and you see it again and again and again. So that's the concept that we want everyone to be familiar with, that there is some environmental triggers that are activating your immune system, trying to protect you, that's creating the acceleration in your aging process. That's why the Italians called it inflammaging.
Yes.
That term came out about 9 years ago, inflammaging. It's always inflammation that accelerates the aging process. Well, I've got this nice oil for my face. It's not going to help, maybe for a little bit, but it's going to catch up with you, because the inflammation in your body is what's accelerating the aging process.
Beautiful. So we can stay more youthful by looking at these triggers. And not only that, we can have a better 10.3 last, decade of our lives by by starting to really prevent. So I guess
look at Elrina.
Yes.
The woman I just showed you. She's 54.
She does not look 54.
2 or 3 times a week,
Yeah. And isn't that what health is all about? Like, you said earlier that when you are set on something, nothing's going to stop you. And that's because you've worked hard on your vitality to fulfill your purpose. Now, when we don't have our health, and I know, with my health history with autoimmune, which is corrected through dietary strategies and lifestyle, as yes, you go into the restaurant and there's not much you can really order, but you know what? I feel better than I've ever had, and I'm not trapped in my own body anymore. I have the freedom. I am the freedom to make choices for my family with, that long game. I'm not in the moment worried about how I'm feeling, because I feel so great. And this is what everybody has access to, like Elrina. These are conditions that theoretically most doctors would say, I'm sorry, just try and do your best, and here's some drugs to try and manage the symptoms. But you're actually saying, go deeper, ask better questions, understand what these environmental triggers are, and you can have the vitality too.
That's exactly right.
It's interesting. So what would you say some of the common misconceptions are about environmental toxins?
Good. The most common source of environmental toxins is what's on the end of your fork. That's the most common source. And we think that if we eat something and we don't get sick from it, that it's okay for us. If you operate from that line of thinking, you get it correct 1 out of 8 times.
Wow. That
gut symptoms are produced from a food triggering inflammation in 1 out of 8 people. In 7 out of 8 people with food sensitivities, it's brain symptoms or skin symptoms. You get acne, or joint symptoms, you're stiff, or liver symptoms. You don't break down alcohol very well. You're a cheap drunk. It just depends on your genetics and your antecedents, which is a geek word that means how you live your life. If you eat tuna fish 2-3 times a week, every week, you likely have mercury toxicity because the tuna is high in mercury. If you eat rice regularly, you likely have arsenic toxicity because rice is high in arsenic. That's an antecedent. So it's your genetics and the antecedents that decide where is the weak link in your chain. What I mean by that is you pull at a chain, it always breaks at the weakest link. It's at one end, the middle, the other end. It's your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, wherever your weak link is, and that's determined by your genetics and antecedents. And the pull on the chain is inflammation, always, without exception. It's inflammation. So stop pulling on the chain so hard. You've got the gene for breast cancer. It doesn't mean you're getting breast cancer. It means if you pull on the chain hard enough, you're likely to get breast cancer. So don't pull on the chain so hard. Or if you've got the gene for Alzheimer's, doesn't mean you're getting Alzheimer's. It means that's the weak link in your chain. So don't pull on the chain so hard. Well, what do you mean? Well, let's find out what foods really work for you and which foods don't, right?
I love that. I love that because I recently did, well, not recently, but in the last few years, I did an epigenetic test, and I am prone epigenetically, or genetically, should I say, to Alzheimer's. But, I had someone come in and say something very similar. And I said, yeah, but that's if that was a roadmap, I get to choose whether or not I'm going to go down that road through
That's right.
through the actions
So
that I take.
That's right. So every person that has the ApoE4 gene should do the Neural Zoomer Plus test.
Awesome.
It's a finger prick test. You just poke your finger, put a drop on a card, send it off to the lab, and Mayo Clinic published on how sensitive this technology is. It's right on the money 97 to 100% of the time. And it looks at 53 markers of inflammation in your brain. So you find out, okay, this is my weak link. How's it going right now? Wow, my lifestyle has 12 markers elevated. Okay, well, what are the markers? Well, I don't know, but I better find out. And then you start exploring. Then you do a test called the total tox burden. That's what I do. That's the second of the 4 tests I do with patients. And it looks to see, do you have mold metabolites? Do you have heavy metals? Do you have petrochemicals, volatile organic compounds in your body that have accumulated and your immune system's fighting all this stuff? Do you have bisphenol A? Do you have phthalates that are elevated in your body? And you just find out, oh, wow, okay, so I've got phthalates. So what does that mean? It means you stop drinking out of plastic water bottles. Stop using that. It means you don't grab the credit card receipts anymore because BPA, bisphenol A, is printed in different layers of the credit card receipt. And when you grab a credit card receipt within 4 minutes, the level of BPA in your blood has gone up by over 100%. Just by holding the receipt in your hand. So I never touch those receipts. When they want to give me, yes, I just put it down, thanks. And then I take a picture of it with my phone. So I've got a record for my accounting, but I never touch the receipt. You learn how to do things like that.
And that's such a simple hack. And it sounds ridiculous for people to think that the receipt is what's going to cause them, problems with their well-being. But it's everywhere. It's in the, it's in our compressed furniture. This stuff is assaulting us at every angle. But if you're making good choices with your fork, you're less likely to perhaps have the expression of the symptoms, right?
Let me give you an example of bisphenol A. Chicago, 2016, they looked at 346 pregnant women, did urine tests in the 8th month of pregnancy, looking for phthalates, including BPA, bisphenol A. They looked at 5 phthalates. And they put the results into fourths, the lowest, the next, the third, and the highest. They followed the offspring of these pregnancies, and when the children turned 7 years old, they did Wechsler IQ tests on them, the official IQ test. Not much in medicine that's all or every, but this was every. Every child whose mother was in the highest category of phthalates in urine in pregnancy, compared to the children in the lowest category of phthalates, every child in the highest category, their IQ was 7 points lower, 6.7 to 7.4 points lower. That doesn't mean anything to anyone until you understand a 1-point difference in IQ is noticeable. A 7-point difference is the difference between a child working really hard, getting straight A's in school, and a child working really hard, getting straight C's. Wow. This child doesn't have a chance in hell of ever excelling. Then you just Google phthalates and neurogenesis, nerve cell growth, brain cell growth. Here come the studies. The higher the phthalates, the more inhibition of your brain developing properly. And it's because mom's been using nail polish for 25 years, drinking out of plastic cups and plastic lids on their coffee, and contact lens solution that's full of bisphenol A, and grabbing credit card receipts and all of the other exposures that you have to learn about to begin reducing your exposure.
And so, Rome, the expression Rome wasn't created in a day. Like, I know for me, I didn't know about a lot of these things, but as you start to open up, firstly, like Relina said, sorry, I think I've got her name right, just around the possibility of maybe I need to do things differently. And then what happens, and this is what I found in my own healing journey, which has now taken place over the last 10 years, is you start to look at the world slightly differently. You start to look at the ingredients labels and you start to go, oh, that isn't in alignment with my values. I need to put it down. But that demise doesn't strengthen in the first 5 minutes. We start with, perhaps eliminating some foods that we know are highly inflammatory, and a lot of your research goes right into what they are. So if you want to start anywhere, grab Dr. Tom's books, start to talk to your practitioner about what can I do? You know, come up with a meal plan for me. Or if you need some inspiration, there's so many incredible people sharing this information that's available, and paleo, and, you know, more of these styles of whole foods, and trying to source off the clean 15 list, and removing the dirty dozen list, which we know are highly sprayed foods, and one step at a time. I mean, I'm sure Dr. Tom O'Brien, when you started doing health, you probably weren't aware of a lot of the things that you now know 45 years later.
That's correct. I knew nothing about this. I was about to go into my internship. Now we're talking 1979. And my ex and I could not get pregnant. And I called the 7 most famous holistic doctors I'd ever heard of and asked, what do you do for infertility? They all told me what they do. I put a program together. We were pregnant in 6 weeks.
Hallelujah.
We lived in married housing in Chicago in school. And my neighbors had been through artificial insemination and nothing had worked for them. They asked if I'd work with them. And I said, well, I don't think it can harm you. Sure. They were pregnant in 3 months. So now we're 4 months pregnant, just so happy, and telling our friends. And our friend's sister in Wisconsin had 2 miscarriages. So she drove down to Chicago. Can I talk to you, please, please, please? And we helped her get pregnant and have a healthy pregnancy. So I came out into practice ready to help the world get pregnant and, you know, have healthy pregnancies. And, you know, I learned back then that every single couple that had a hormone-related problem, whether it was infertility or miscarriages, polycystic ovaries, premature ejaculation, it didn't matter. Every single couple had as a component of their problem, they were eating foods they did not know were causing inflammation in their body because they didn't feel it in their stomach when they ate it. They just had hormone imbalances, or they had brain dysfunction, headaches, or they had seizures, or they had acne from the foods. But every couple had foods that they were eating that were causing more inflammation. That's how I learned, and that was 40-some years ago.
And that was the beginning of, no doubt, some better questions and different questions that have led to now understanding that receipts you just don't touch, you know, amongst many other things. Okay, so one last question, which I think will wrap everything that you've shared today, which is just so incredibly empowering. You know, you can walk away from this discussion feeling perhaps a little fearful that everything is trying to kill you, or you can start to take action into, how do I support myself so that the last 10.3 years of my life are going to be vibrant? Who really wants to spend the last 10.3 years looking at a TV screen? Not me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be there. That's not my reality. I refuse to accept it. So why is functional medicine and functional strategies well suited to supporting and treating toxin exposure?
Oh my. Well, you know, it's like Elrina said, you know, you can lead a horse to water. I mean, some people are just not ready to be well, and they want a pill and keep living the way they're living. And that doesn't mean you have to change overnight. But, you know, and in the book one of my books that you referenced in the beginning, You Can Fix Your Brain, the subtitle of the book, that is the path to success. And the subtitle was just 1 hour a week to the best memory, productivity, and sleep you've ever had. Now, what do I mean by that? You tell your family, look, every Tuesday night after dinner, or every Saturday afternoon, or whenever it is, but at this time every week, don't bother me. I'm going to spend 1 hour and I'm going to learn more how we can be healthier. And when you are overwhelmed to learn that your plastic storage containers in the kitchen leach these toxic chemicals into your food, but here's the answer, get glass storage containers. And so you go back to my book and you get the 3 URLs for glass storage containers. And, you know, you go online, you look at those are okay. Oh, I like those. And you order 3 round ones and 2 square ones and 1 for the pie, pay through credit card, hit send. You're done for the week. That's it for the week. But never again will you poison your family with minute amount of these toxins that leach into the food. And then next week, you spend an hour and you look at organic nail polish that doesn't have phthalates. And then next week, you get the handouts we'll give you on houseplants that absorb 74% of the toxins of the air in the house. And then next week, you look at another point. And then, and in 6 months, you go to church and your friends say, wow, what happened to you? You look like $1 million. You look so young and vital, and you've lost some weight. And say, yeah, well, I got rid of the plastic storage containers. I changed my cosmetics. I've got organic shampoos now. There's no gluten in our house anymore. And they look at you like, what? What? It's a paradigm shift. Functional medicine is a paradigm shift. You change the way you think when you understand that this way of living is throwing petrol on the fire, and that the fire is pulling on the chain, and wherever your genetic weak link is, that's where it's going to manifest. And you realize that, you say, well, I don't want to throw so much petrol on the fire. And you can't be perfect. And every day of our event, it's 9 days, 1 hour a day. And every day of the event, we always say, hi, welcome. Now, remember, you're going to hear a lot today, and just take notes of things you want to learn more about. But it's progress, not perfection. That's the goal here. And so you take baby steps. Fran Drescher, when I interviewed Fran Drescher, the nanny.
Yes.
And when I interviewed Fran, and at some point, she looked at me and she said, Dr. Tom, you used my guest bathroom before we began this recording, she said. And I said, yes. And she said, how did you get there? And I said, well, it's right over there, just out of the camera view. No, but how did you get there? And then I knew what she was doing. She had a little sparkle in her eye. And I said, well, Fran, I didn't fly. And she goes, ah, ha, ha. She does her laugh, right? She says, one step at a time.
Yes.
And then she looks directly in the camera and she says, that's what you do with your life. It's one step at a time. You just take it at the pace that you can take it, but you keep going one step at a time, just a little bit at a time. I've spent 25 years in Chicago, and there was a very famous writer for one of the newspapers. His name was Studs Terkel, and he's a character out of the past. I mean, he had a fedora that he would wear, and he always had a cigar in his mouth, out the side of his mouth, and just a character, and a great writer. People love Studs, and a common scene with Studs. He'd go into this bar in downtown Chicago, and where he used to hang out. And when he was about to leave, and someone recorded it, and you see this recording, we used to see it every once in a while on the news. He gets up from his bar stool, he takes a cigar out of his mouth, he's got his fedora angled his head. He says, take it easy. Then he turns around to walk out, but then he turns back and says, but take it. And then he walks out, right? Just a character. And that's really the message, is take it easy, but take it every day. Just take a baby step. That's all you need. And in 6 months, you've changed your life, you've changed your body function, you've changed the direction of your health. That's the key.
Unbelievable, and so inspiring, so hope-filling, and just alerting people of what is going on around them and how they can just claim back their well-being, stop being stuck in your body, just take those steps one at a time. So how do practitioners find out more about what you're doing, and how do the public find out more about what you're doing?
Oh, thank you so much. For the practitioners, you go to the inflammationequation.com/affiliate, and you sign up there, and then we give you a specific link, and that's what you send out to your whole tribe, all of your patients and we've got videos of Fran Drescher for you, and Elrina, and many other little 30-second, 1-minute videos that you can send to your people that capture their interest and say, register for this event. Here's the link. And when they register, then we know in our computers, they came from you, doctor. So we'll let the doctor know, here's the list of people that came from you. Reach out to them and say, you know, when this event's, thanks for registering. And when the event's over, I'm going to have a Facebook Live on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. Let's all get together and talk about what you learned, and I'll answer your questions. Because I want the patients to have the resource of going back to their doctor every day. I'm saying to them, go back to the doctor or the healthcare practitioner that recommended this event to you. Go back to them and ask them, could my daughter's asthma be because of mold in the house? Could my son's attention deficit be from a food sensitivity? Ask the questions of your healthcare practitioner, and they will help you explore if that's the trigger of where the inflammation is coming from that's causing the asthma or causing the brain dysfunction that we call attention deficit. So ask the practitioner. So for our practitioners, theinflammationequation.com/affiliate.
Excellent.
And everything's free. Everything is free. And for the general public, it's theinflammationequation.com/Sally.
Okay.
I believe that's the one we did for you, Sally. I think so. Let me just check that to be sure, if I may.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure that was it. Let me just see. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's Kearns. Kearns, theinflammationequation.com/Kearns.
Excellent.
And then we will let you know that your people registered for the event, and then you can reach out to them and have a Facebook Live afterwards with them.
This is so empowering because, you know, once people have the cognitive, well, we'll call it cognitive confusion around their environment kind of broken down, then we can start to talk about strategies that are simple and sustainable to transform them. And it's all part of helping humanity heal one plate at a time. And thank you so much for what you're doing. This is so empowering. And so if I'm a consumer and I'm not a practitioner and I want to get my hands on this inflammation equation docuseries, where do I go?
theinflammationequation.com/Kearns, Kearns.
Oh, great. Okay, fantastic. So we'll do that. I'll pop all the links in the show notes. And I just want to thank you, Dr. Tom O'Brien. I'm so eternally grateful for the work that you do. And I can't wait to see what your next 8-year project's going to be, because you just pull out rippers. And if this is you doing an average job, wow, I can't wait to see the inflammation equation, because your work to date has seriously inspired every time I've contemplated picking up wheat. Just, you know, I get your little voice in my head just saying, well, why not every people, Sally? You know, so I just, you know, it's just.
Well, I'm glad to be that voice in your head. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Awesome.